This video is not brought to you by Soundcore.
There's nothing wrong with the 1980s. And when I did my first video of the Soundcore Motion 300, there wasn't too much to complain about. Perhaps expectations were not high, given the likes of the Motion X600. For me, a distortion fest. For others, the greatest thing since, of course, sliced bread. But you know, some things get better with time, such as me and fine wine. Speakers can be quite different. I've spent more time. I'm going to put my hands up and say, guys, without giving too much away, no spoiler alerts or anything like that. It's no secret, unless you've been living in Mars, on Mars. In Mars would be really, really strange.
Mars a day helps you work, rest and play.
It's no secret that there's been issues with me and Soundcore. And not just with me personally and stuff like nicking my EQ and not accrediting me, but stuff like the marketing, which is really, really bad the way they're going at the moment. For instance, sticking paid review videos on their website and headlining it as feedback. That is really, 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 really bad. I did rush the Soundcore Motion 300 because I don't get early speakers anymore from Soundcore. After my post about the Soundcore 300 saying, why, you said, we're seeing all these paid reviews, but where's yours, mate? And I said, on Soundcore, because they don't want to send it to me. I had to email Soundcore, and apparently they said, well, the guy I emailed is no longer theirs. But it didn't come back as an unknown address or anything like that. It's gone somewhere. Anyway, I said, look, at the end of the day, I'm going to, good or bad, I'll say it as it is. Would you like to send me the Motion 300? They never replied. But when I posted it on Instagram, they said, oh, well, we'll send it to you now. It was all a bit late, and I'd already got one. I had to buy it from America. I'm in the UK, if you don't know. I had to buy it from America. It cost me the extra postage and all that. It was already on the way. I said, well, hang on a sec. I've already bought it. But because I've already seen paid reviews for the X600, X500. I've seen the adverts and the marketing, the early bird, which is always, you're going to get that price anyway, but I won't go into that. I said, send me the X500, which 3 weeks on I haven't got. They said they would send it, but I have got tracking for it, but it's still in China. I don't know. Anyway, the point was I rushed this out because you were saying, ow, ow, ow. And I said, what? And you said, where's the review on the Motion 300? Because you used to work for Soundcore, didn't you? I didn't work for Soundcore, but you told me I did. I think we can put that one to bed for now. But I rushed it out. I didn't spend as long as I would with it normally because there was so much interest. I wanted to get it out. And I've learnt my lesson. No spoiler alerts, but just say some of my enthusiasm. I'm saying it's about the form factor. Of course, you get bigger speakers the same price, they're going to sound better. About the form factor, and there didn't seem too much wrong with it at the time. Let's see what happens in this video. Just to say, you've been asking for this and that, and that, and this and that, and this and that, and I'm going to try and get to the most interesting ones. At this point, the most interesting ones are, so where are we? We're at the table. I know that. But here's the point. Where's the point? It's the end of a pencil. Right. No, a pencil, you can lead a horse to water, but a pencil must be led. Disclaimer alert. You have been told. So, it's about the form factor. Obviously, they're trying to knock off the Bose Flex. I said at lower volumes, this is where it comes into its own, and at higher volumes, I prefer the Flex for many reasons. Not for many reasons, but for a few reasons. And then you're saying, well, if it's going up against the Flex, it must be better than cheaper speakers, even their own speakers. Now, what have I got on the table? I have on the table here, it's the Soundcore Boost version 2, the upgraded version. Do you know when this came out? Well, I'll tell you, if you don't know, it came out over 6 years ago.
Wow.
They're still selling it, over 6 years ago. So 6 years of development, and it's more expensive. Street price, it seems to be, I know it's flip-floppy. When I checked today, 90 quid, $80, 50 quid, $60. The JBL Flip 6, 98 quid, $130. Big range in price, but they're all small travel speakers. But for me, this is different because it's very backpackable because of the flat form factor, which is where the Flex comes into its own. It's not about, oh, it's the greatest speaker then at that price. No, it's about the price and the form factor and the sound. This is a bit more chunky. Came out 6.5 years ago, it's got no chance, but it comes from Soundcore.
Soundcore.
It's cheaper, and you automatically assume, well, it's going to be better than that. We're going to answer that. And then, of course, well, it's got no chance against a more expensive speaker, the 98 quid, $130. But, of course, we know this is as a bit of a screech fest. They've all got issues, but yes, they're all travel speakers. They're all small form factor speakers, but different. Square and chunky, round and cylindrical, flat like a pancake.
I'm a pancake. I'm a pancake. Do. I'm a pancake.
And lots of EQ options. I don't really want to go into all the options about the EQ in the app because I've already done that in the first video. You can see the pre-ramble is now 20 minutes. We've done nothing. Just to say, lots of Soundcore, class-leading app, 9-band graphic equalizer, and an additional, what they call full band, sort of semi-parametric equalizer. You can really mess about with it. When you have it like that, they call it standing, and it has a certain EQ. When you do that, they call it lying. Soundcore calling it lying. It goes into another EQ, and when you have it like that, or like that, goes into another EQ, becomes mono, stereo, mono, goes into another EQ, all of which you can go into. So it's all about, do you want to get hands-on and dirty?
You're a dirty old man.
You can really customize that. Of course, comes from Soundcore. We still have a 9-band graphic equalizer, but it's JBL. They're only the biggest company in terms of selling speakers, so of course they've only got a 3-band sort of graphic equalizer. But it's about form factor, but they're all travel speakers. Where does it really sit in the travel sector? I have to tell you, this is actually the heaviest on the table, 775 grams, followed by the Boost, which is lighter at 624 grams, lighter and cheaper. And the lightest on the table, but the most expensive, is the 550 gram JBL Flip 6. All got EQs. Now, in this test, I'm going to do a moderate volume test where they all have a sweet spot. They are small speakers. That bass is going to relatively drop off as you go up the volume. So around 50% as a sweet spot, they should be sounding good. And then 75%, which is really pushing it for these type of speakers because that bass is already relatively, I know you keep saying, oh, and they drop the bass. They do not drop the bass. They limit the bass, but they carry on with the mids and the highs, so it sounds like it's got less bass. Going to do default modes on each of them. Going to do the extra bass mode on the Soundcore Motion 300. You already asked me, what about your EQ? It takes me hours, mates. People just like talking to me, mate, it takes me hours, right? It takes me hours. And Soundcore have a habit now of changing the EQ. The Motion X600, as far as I know, still has at least 9 different EQs, depending on the firmware out there in the world. I'm not playing that game until I know everybody has got the same settled EQ. I'm not going to waste my time on the modern Soundcore as it is.
Soundcore.
So what I'm going to do, default extra bass, we call that the EQ mode. My custom EQ, which I did a long time ago. My ear is slightly different now. Maybe it would be a bit different now, but I'm not going to cheat. So default and my custom EQ that I'd been putting out. I don't really customize this because it's ridiculous. But what I will do, because I know you like to flip-floppy with the 3 tone controls, default mode, and then when I do that against the extra bass, it will be in its custom EQ, and I'm just doing a gentle EQ, which for most people will be somewhere around where they're going to do. What they're going to do, they're going to drop a notch on the highs, and they're going to increase the bass because it's a screech fest, but it's got the separate, if you didn't know, it's got the separate tweeter and a woofer. 2 4-range drivers, of course they've got passive radiators. So why don't we go straight into this? Well, make sure I didn't miss out anything. I didn't really miss out anything. We're going to go straight in. So 53%, 55% volume, both default and then extra bass and custom EQ comparison. Remember, in terms of what these sort of size speakers can do, around 50% is going to be a sweet spot before you start really pushing them and that relative bass starts reducing. The Soundcore Motion 300 versus the JBL Flip 6. The Flip 6 is slightly more V-shaped. It has a bigger bass boost, and it's got more of a boost in the presence region in terms of the highs. The highs are more present, if you didn't realise what that meant. But this Soundcore 300 is a bright sounding speaker. It has a very obvious upward slope. It is, at all volumes, it's on the bright side. A lot of people just perceive that as clarity, depending on what tracks you listen to. If you listen to very balanced tracks, that brightness will start hurting your ears. The tracks probably most people buying the speaker will be listening to, it will just push already a muted highs up, and you'll hear that as extra clarity because you're hearing a bit more on the highs than you would have. Just though it ain't neutral, it's bright. So in terms of the V-shaped speakers, especially when I did it against the Flex, the mids are very strong. So that's where, at these volumes, in signature mode, that's its strong point. You get a sense of clarity because of the brightness, but it's not a natural clarity. Let's get that out of the way. But it's strong in the mids compared to what these speakers normally put out. And that's its strength. It's still a little bit bass light in signature mode. Of course it's bass light because it's got an upward slant. So of course that bass is going to be muted relatively already against the mids and the highs. But it is a harsh tweeter on the Flip 6. Lots of different versions. I can only go by the version I have here on my table. A lot of it will come down to taste. So you'll get an extra sense of clarity out of the JBL and you'll get a stronger bass. But you'll get stronger mids out of the 300. They both sound reasonable, but you can pick holes in them if you wanted to. But for me, in terms of what's out there and for the money, although that's more expensive, it's reasonable. So if you value mids, you'll go for at these volumes. In signature mode, you'll go for the 300. If you value clarity or a little bit of more bass oomph, the Flip 6 is the winner. And then, of course, we've got the 6.5 year, got no chance. Oh, hang on a second. Didn't sound too bad. But the issue for the Soundcore Boost is the name, is Boost. And do you know what they did? They did what they said on the label. They boosted the bass. So at lower volumes, these are moderate volumes, and I'm saying it should be a sweet spot, but not really for the amount of bass push, even in default mode, we're getting on the Boost. If you love a warm sound signature, you'll love the Boost. But in an A-B, in these comparisons, it's going to come off as muddy, that's going to come off as clearer, and you'll say that's a winner. Even for me, that's a bit too bass heavy in its default mode, and even in my custom, I push it even more, but I don't really listen to these volumes. I push the volumes higher. But I'm going to say at these volumes, muddy but warmer, bigger bass, you may just like that bass, but you probably would prefer the clarity. I have to say, because these are bright speakers, this comes off as sounding a bit dull, along with the fact that they have pushed the bass so much. If the bass was natural, that would be very balanced because it's actually got the most balanced highs, but you don't get a sense of that because of the bass push and the fact that we're comparing them against bright speakers. Already bass dominant in default mode. We switch it to my custom EQ. I'm going to say that I didn't make a custom EQ for all volumes. I tried to keep it simple with one EQ for the volumes I listen at. I have since changed my ethos because a lot of people are not getting it. But at these volumes, I would not be using my custom EQ, but I'm keeping it fair. I switched to extra bass, bass up. Well, it's not bass up. Well, just to say, actually, bass. There is the bass up, but bass up is actually a bass cut if you turn it off. So I leave bass up on in all of the sound tests in this video. But obviously, for me, this is the winner because that's now too muddy. But you may just really, really like the bass, but that's really not a custom EQ for that volume. But again, the highs are more natural. Then extra bass. Now I've got a sort of custom EQ. I know most of you actually push that bass to +2 and even bring -2. I'm just trying to have a halfway house between what most of us would be doing. So +1 bass, -1 on the highs. It is very shrieky, the tweeter. But hey, you will also get a lot of extra clarity from it. When you switch the modes, it's actually very close now in terms of the sound. Yes, it's different, but it's certainly much closer than if you left them in default mode. We've got more upper bass on the Flip 6, but we've got a bit more deeper bass extension. Obviously, they're only little speakers, not real deep bass, but a sense of a deeper bass extension on the 300. And also the way the highs are tailored, more presence region, but then more further up in terms of high-end extension. So they will sound different but close, if that makes sense. It's going to be a matter of taste. But look, if you want a smoother high end, you'll go for the Boost because these are bright sounding speakers. This is especially bright, and that's bright because it's quite a harsh tweeter. But remember, this is the strong point for the 300. Around these volumes or lower. Even in my first video, I did point out we're going to have issues going up in volume. So we're going to go up in volume. Just as I said that, what a fantastic link. Around 75%, not around, at 70. So what I've done, I haven't normalized them all to ear. I've done this fairly. So you're hearing what each speaker will do at 75% and then normalizing so you can compare how nice that would sound to your ears. 75% default and bass mode.
Wisdom in my mind, memories of us when you used to find me so dangerous. You told me it's fine, I'm serious. We're not all time, so no need to rush. Wisdom in my mind, memories of us when you used to find me so dangerous. You told me it's fine, I'm serious. We're not all time, so no need to rush.
So neither of these speakers, none of them are great at these. You know, we're now pushing the volume. 75% is now, you know, they still may start limiting at 80% in terms of that bass. It's probably not where you want to be for most of your life. It is bass light, and it's even more bass light now at these volumes as bass is limiting, and we've still got the upward slant. We've still got a very bright sound signature. Same thing with the JBL Flip 6. It's got, you know, 2 full range but separate woofer and tweeter, but that tweeter is so harsh. It's an issue. If you want a bit more bass, Flip 6. If you want a safer option in terms of your ears, I would say the 300. But I would also say neither of them are very nice to listen to. You then switch to extra bass. You switch to your custom EQ, and the problem now is in extra bass mode, as you heard there, it's prone to distortion. It's prone to distortion quite a bit. I didn't really get that in my first video, and I'm a bit annoyed with myself because there's people buying this speaker on the bass. It's not a bad speaker. I mean, well, it's not a bad option if you want something in that form factor and really want to get in deep and dirty and tweak the EQs. You've got all those options. And of course, all my comparisons are in LDAC. You've got LDAC. Yes, it's Android only. You won't be able to get it on Apple. But it does sound a bit better in LDAC, especially, obviously, if you actually play high-res tracks. It gives it a bit of an advantage. The problem is it's pushed too much in extra bass mode. It's going to distort. It's going to distort more than I realized in my first video. The more I listen to it now, there are a lot of tracks. You know, the X600 I get all the time. I can't listen to it at all. I can listen to this. At least it's a bright speaker, and if I just want to get some of that clarity, it's doing a job. And if I look at other options, this is, you know, and it will change EQ depending on how you orient it. Still think it's a reasonable buy. But it's far from perfect. The distortion is not good. And that's why I say, even at first I did say, best mid to low volume. That's where it's going to come in. If you're going to push volumes, don't get this, because it's going to distort, and in signature mode, it's going to be bass light. This is not perfect either, but it plays a hell of a lot cleaner than, you know, in custom EQ, it plays a hell of a lot cleaner than extra bass mode on the 300. It's still a bit shrieky. You can still tame that, the highs even more. I mean, it's not perfect itself, but it's a hell of a lot cleaner than the 300. So I have to give it the win to the Flip 6 over the sound. As you push volumes, much like I did with the Flex, as you push the volumes, it's got issues, haven't we all? But I'm not asking you to pay 75 quid for mine. So you're going to have less issues if you push the volumes, but if you like mids, then you'll like that at lower volumes. So then, the 6.5 years older, the Soundcore Boost. They're still selling. Well, they still sell it out. I'll tell you why I still sell it. Then I'll sound too bad. If you like a bass-heavy sound, you get a speaker that size with that sort of bass. Yes, it's still prone to distortion, especially if you put my custom EQ on. You don't have to use my custom EQ, and I would tweak it now if I came back to it. That was in the old days. My ears have changed a little bit, and actually, the drivers may be wearing a little bit more. Maybe that's why I'm getting a bit more distortion on mine that I didn't really remember hearing in the earlier days. The other thing to say about the Soundcore Boost is, at lower volumes, it's a little bit prone to pumping the bass. The bass will come in, go out, come. It's only on very specific tracks. And I have to say 95% of the time that I'm playing it, I don't get that at all. It's not an issue for me. For some people, for the tracks they're playing, it's a deal breaker. I've got to put that out there. But for me, and at high volumes, you don't seem to get that issue. For me, it's still a great speaker, isn't it? Against the newer, the heavily marketed, the Shrill's lovely speaker, like they did the X600, and I guarantee they're going to like with the X500 and the Motion 100 when it comes out. In extra bass mode and custom EQ, it's quite close, except this distorts less. There's still some woolliness to it, but the distortion on that is much worse. There's a shade deeper bass on that, and there's a lot more upper bass. If you like your upper bass, you would definitely prefer that, but it can be a bit slap happy, and it suffers with a bit of a 6.5 kilohertz dip. I would say, and I've got it in my notes, in the real world, outside of these tests and a little fight, 30-second AB, you can't really know a speaker, but it just gives you a little bit of an idea of the general tonality of the speaker. This harsh, it's harsh as you push the volumes. It's got a bright tuning, very bright tuning. And as you push the volumes, it's harsh. It's decent, 50%, low, maybe 60% below. Over 60%, this is not a great option. So warm will make this the win. If you like a bit cleaner, a bit more clarity, the Flip 6 will win. But if you like mids at low volumes, the 300 will win. That's what we are. And you're saying, well, wow, I just spent 20 minutes talking about bass distortion and I couldn't even hear it. So I'm just going to play the original track against the Motion 300 and have a listen to the bass. Just remember, they'll sound very different anyway, because this is bright. Now you'll hear the difference between a brightly tuned speaker and a naturally tuned speaker, as I do an A/B with the original track and the Motion 300. But what I really want you to listen to is the sound of the bass. It's already not good. So you're already expecting the maximum volume test not to be good. It's only about how loud would it go. You're 500 feet away from it. You're going to a football game or something, and will you still hear anything? And that's what the maximum loudness test is really about. It's not about, will I still have like an analytical, clinical, sort of listen and maximum volume. No, I'll tell you that right away. But I'll tell you what sounds the loudest. So it's the Motion 300 that goes the loudest. It's doing that because of its mids push, whereas the JBL Flip 6 relies on a 4 kilohertz peak almost entirely for its loudness, but it does hold on to as much bass from 150 hertz down as the 300. And now finally the Soundcore Boost no longer is the bass heavy speaker here. It can't really keep up at all now in terms of the bass. And again, it's all really a mids push, but it's a more narrow mids push, 600 hertz to around 1500 hertz, and then steeply rolling off. The Soundcore Boost, 150 hertz and down, no longer has the strongest bass, but it does hold on to quite a bit of upper bass, 150 hertz up to 300 hertz. It's above the Flip 6, while being stronger across the mids before its high-end roll-off compared to the Flip 6. But with the Soundcore Motion 300, you've got the overall volume, and you've also got some of that bass, which means it's going near 2 decibels louder than the Flip 6, which again is near 3 decibels louder than the Soundcore Boost. Same story in peaks. Overall bass, the winner is the Soundcore Motion 300, but they all have a very different balance. So finally, the bass does fall away on the Soundcore Boost, and it sounds quite muted. Even though the highs are still quite natural, that original track does have a roll-off in the high end, and these we push in the high end, but it doesn't go loud compared to the other two. It sounds muted, and the big thing about this is the bass, and it doesn't really hold on to the bass now at maximum volumes. In terms of the Soundcore Motion 300, it does go the loudest, it does have the most bass. Does it sound good? No. But if you just want to go loud, if you want to hear a little bit, the thing is, obviously, this basically has that single 4 kilohertz peak that it seems to rely on, but it has as much bass as that, so it gives it a very different tonality, or it will sound quite different. This would simply sound louder because the mids are there, where it's not there on that. But if you just want the bass, they're neck and neck. I'd have to say this is for me, the Motion 300 wins at absolute maximum volume against these two, even though it didn't at 75%. In terms of, because we're just trying to go loud. And by the way, that was in default, because I'm doing the loudest. If you wouldn't want to do extra bass at 100%, trust me on that. So it is a different conclusion now to my, I'm just trying to find my end notes to see what I've missed out. It is a different conclusion. There are more issues with this speaker than I realised when I did my first video. I'm really, really disappointed in myself. I rushed that. I'm not going to do that again. If you notice the gaps, you know, when I had time, I could do maybe at best 2 videos a week. When I'm pacing myself and doing it properly, I'm doing 1 video every 2 weeks. As soon as I try and push a video out, you can't do that. That's why you can't really, even in ABs, get a sense. You just get a sense of, in general, what that speaker's going to do. You've got to live with it. You've got to be playing it in all the different modes. You've got to be playing lots of different genres, lots of different tracks. To find the ones that find it out, especially on these brightly tuned speakers, because they'll sound fine on muted tracks. But if you play a bright track, it's going to sound horrendous. So that's why neutral speakers in general are quite good, because you're not going to have that issue. Whereas in an AB, the bright speaker will sound better. You'll just say, well, that's clearer, isn't it, mate? No, you're going to have to listen to the original track to find out how it should have sounded. But I'm not saying that even matters. If, for instance, you like a bass heavy sound, you've got a massive boost on the bass, there's nothing wrong with that, if that's what you like. I'm just saying it's only if that then ends up in distortion on certain tracks, then it's a problem. But if it's playing clean and you like it, that's absolutely fine. There's no law. Audiophiles might tell you different, but trust me, there is no law that says this is how you have to listen to music. Even this neutral stuff is a starting point. If you ever actually measured in someone's room where it ends up, everyone's ears and rooms, you'll be ending up with listening to something that's a bit different. But anyway, I would say for these 3 speakers, I'm not saying this is a mistake. I'm not saying it's one I listen to hardly ever or even enjoy, but it certainly does a job of sort, and that is you're going to get some clarity out of it you won't get out of these with that separate tweeter. You're going to have to tame the highs, but it does offer something at low volumes. Sometimes, it will still come down to taste. Low volumes in default mode, a bit more bass, it's a bit clearer, but the mids is where you will choose that. That will be the reason to choose that, but it sounds okay at lower volumes. Then we've got a different form factor, so the form factor will come in, and you only got 1 EQ, or you can do the custom EQ, but you can do it that way, and to change the EQs, and that's a lot of fun, and that's more expensive, and that's the warmest speaker, and that's, to me, I'd probably still pick this up. In fact, you know, in terms of, I always picked up over the Flip 6, and I would pick this up at louder volumes. I mean, this is okay. I think this is, for most people, a safe option, even though it's a very unnatural sound. But it's only when you start pushing the volumes and switch to extra bass, you're going to have major issues.
I got issues.
So I think Flip 6 probably is a winner, but it doesn't sound great. It's going to sound a bit harsh, and I think that's a winner for warm, but it's going to sound a bit muted, and the bass will distort a bit if you keep it as high as I've got it in its custom EQ. But look at the price. It's half the price of well, it's 50 quid. It's half the price of basically both of them. So I still think that's best value on the table, because I can still get two of those, then I can play it at lower volume for the same volume as one of those, especially if we're going up against the Flip 6, and I could custom EQ it to my heart's content, get rid of any of the bassiness, because actually those highs are the most natural. These have got boosted highs, but the problem is the highs on this are overwhelmed by the bass, even in default mode, even before messing with the custom EQ, which ruins it. There is a good tuning to be had if I had the time to go back and retune this. So quickly, I just do the specs, just to say my conclusion there is there's something for everybody. Just know what you're buying, but don't buy this to play extra bass at louder volumes. It's going to distort, and if you don't like a bright sound, don't buy that as well. You've still got an issue of that one being a bit harsh, but the bass is a bit nicer at low volumes, but you're going to miss some of the mids because it's more V-shaped, and that's going to sound very, very bass heavy, and you may not like that. So we've all got issues.
I got issues.
But we've all got something to tempt you with. What's it all about, Alfie? Okay, the specs. We talked about price. We talked about when they came out, or did I say, yeah, 6 years old. That came out 2 years ago. This has just come out now, as if you didn't know by the marketing. This does not support multi-point functionality. That may be a deal breaker. These two do. 24.1 watt hours is probably a class-leading battery for a speaker that size. Soundcore Boost, 19.2 watt hours, and the smallest battery, the Flip 6 at 17.3 watt hours. SBC, the JBL SBC, what do we call it? So bloody crap, absolute. Well, it's not really crap, but it's not great. It's not great. There's lots better than what codecs we had. But we've got LDAC, 990 kilobits per second. If you're lucky enough to actually get that, you're close enough for a good connection, and indeed you're playing high-res tracks. They would tell you 3 times the more detail. That's not true. Simply not true. Sue me. Not true to say 3 times the detail. If you're playing 328 kilobits tracks, you've got exactly the same detail, because you can't force detail out where there isn't any. So 990 kilobits per second, some bit more detail if your tracks are more than 328 kilobits per second. It's not just about the bitrate. I know we're going on about it. It's also about the efficiency and other stuff with the codecs. But let's say in terms of the bitrate, because that's what they're talking about 3 times, to about 328. It's not exactly, 330 would be 3 times. But they're talking about the difference in bitrate as 3 times the detail. 3 times the bitrate does not equal 3 times the detail. That is not true, Soundcore.
SoundPoor.
Only if there's a bit more detail in there in the first place. You're playing a high-res track, but 3 times the detail is a meaningless thing to say. What does that mean?
I don't know.
I can tell you in terms of what you'd hear from at tracks that are very, very high-res. It's a little bit nicer in the high end. It's a little bit more sophisticated sort of sounding. It's a nicer sound if you've got the ears for it, and that's where you're going to hear the difference in the mids and the high ends. You're not going to hear it in the bass. 3 times the detail is not true. That's very, 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 very bad to say. Very, 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 very bad to say. It also has AAC and it also has SBC. So bloody crap. So Bluetooth 5.1 for the Flip 6, Bluetooth 5 for the version 2 Boost, 5.3 for the Motion 300. All do true wireless stereo pairing. All have USB-C connections. None of them, I'm afraid to tell you, have an auxiliary input. You can use them as a power bank, except for the brand new, heavily marketed Soundcore 300. Power bank, Soundcore, 6.5 years old, from cheaper speaker from Soundcore. Can use it as a power bank. Can't use that as a power bank. Why? Can use that as a power bank. Can't use that as a power bank. Why?
Are you crazy? Are you out of your mind?
Can use them all to make phone calls except the Flip 6. Don't like to give you features. The modern JBL, stripping out features. Can't use it to make phone calls.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
They say this is a 30-watt speaker. What does that mean? I've got no idea. I've got no idea. I'm supposed to know about audio. I've got no idea what they mean when they say 30. Do you know why? Because they don't tell me what they're testing or how they're testing it. So it's absolutely meaningless, but I know you like the figure. So they're saying 30 watts. And it did go the loudest in the test. They're also saying 30 watts for the Flip 6. Did it go the loudest? No. In fact, there was just a little 4 kilohertz peak. 30 watts, 20 watts. But it was the quietest. So maybe there is something in the watts after all. But in the old days, they were a little bit more upfront with what they're rating. Now we've got no idea. Just told you that this is the heaviest, and it is very, very chunky in the hand. Although it's the thinnest in terms of the form factor and more backpackable. They've all got IP7 rating, 1 meter of water, 30 minutes, but only the JBL, the more expensive JBL Flip 6 is also a dustproof, and only the 6.5-year-old Boost 2, if you dropped it in water, albeit you can do 1 meter water for 30 minutes, but if it's 2 meters and you didn't know you dropped it, this is the only one that survived because it's the only one that floats. So we've got that 45mm by 80mm, 45mm by 80mm, very, very, very fast racetrack oval driver, and a 20mm tweeter, 2 passive radiators, 2 44mm 4-range drivers, 2 passive radiators, 2 48mm 4-range drivers, 2 passive radiators. Only the Flip 6 then, as I just said, has the tweeter, but wait for it, we'll love it when we say only the Soundcore Motion Boost. Is it the Motion? No, it's the Soundcore Boost version 2 has titanium drivers. What happens if you want to listen to YouTube? Well, you're going to have a reasonable experience on the Flip 6 because I tested 83 milliseconds. That's right on the border where I have my cutoff point. So I would say usable for streaming on my Android device. The Boost 2, not good, 165 milliseconds, that's not usable. The Motion 300, I had 216 milliseconds in LDAC, 200 milliseconds in AAC, 116 milliseconds in So Bloody Crap SBC, none of them usable. It's the heavily marketed brand new speaker. Try and stream your YouTube and hello, there's me talking. So it's not usable. 9-band graphic equalizer, 9-band graphic equalizer plus parametric equalizer, sort of, not really. Flip 6, 3-band tone control. You say that a lot. I don't know. Bluetooth speakers is a very, very strange world. It's probably why I like to review them. So that's been it. I don't know how long that's been. About 50 minutes again. We'll see what happens in editing. Thank you for watching this one. As I said, I put my hands up. Got a lot more issues than I realised in my first video. I still think it's a reasonable buy if you're aware of those issues and how you're going to use it. Because if I think of, well, what would I buy instead? Well, I get the Flex, but it's twice the price. So I could get 2 of those. And I said, this will fill in the mids where most of them are lacking at lower volume. So as long as you know what you're buying, but it's not all the good news that we had in that first video. And I'm so annoyed at myself. Right. So, I mean, in some ways I'm glad because you'll probably say, well, you're just knocking it. You don't like Soundcore anymore. And I don't for many reasons. But I'll still tell you honestly how I feel about it. I thought it was okay in the first one. I still think it's okay if you know the issues. It's got a lot more issues than I realised. Extra bass is probably unusable, actually, for most people once you start pushing 60% and above. But the signature mode is okay, but slightly bass light. Anyway, I've said it. I'm just repeating myself. I thank you for watching. I'll see you again.
What the was that?
What do you mean? What do you mean?
It comes from China.
My speaker's got deep bass, balanced mids, and a bright high.
Yes, mine sounds exactly the same.